Hi Noteboard Gamers and welcome back to Noteboard Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now today's video is going to be a huge big Christmas culling video. That's right, I'm going to talk about the games which are going to be leaving my collection and why they're leaving my collection. Now as board gamers, as avid board gamers in this hobby, we tend to buy, if not overbuy, on the games that we collect. And some of those games maybe don't get played as often as they do, or you play them and you realise that they're not quite for you, or maybe you just bought them and you just didn't do anything with them as well. So as my collection grows, every now and again I go through a bit of a culling exercise, talk about the games I'm going to be getting rid of, and that's what this video is today. So it's Christmas time, so I thought I would do this prior to Christmas, let you know what's leaving my collection. And of course, the good thing about recycling games is, first of all, they're going to go to somebody that wants the game, which is always a really good thing. And secondly, it creates more space in my collection so I can get more games. Now, I bought less games this year than I have the previous year, and I'm okay with that. My Kickstarter habit it's died down. It's not dwindled without a trace, but it's certainly died down. So I've acquired potentially less games this year than I did in the previous 12 months, but still there's plenty of games that just don't cut it for me. So without much further ado, let's talk about the first thing that's leaving my collection. And the first thing that's leaving my collection is not a game, but it's game adjunct, and it is the Fantasy Series 1 miniatures from Blacklist Games. So I've got this, and I've got the big stretch goal box as well. And I backed this. I don't really know why I backed this, because I didn't really need any more minis. But I backed it, and it arrived, and I got the 4 cards for Alter Quest out of it, and then I've got 2 boxes of minis, and the other one's sizably bigger than this, that I don't know what I'm going to do anything with. So I thought it's time to create space in my collection and absolutely get rid of Fantasy Series 1 miniatures from Blacklist Games. Some great looking minis in here, but I've got no space for them and no need for them, so that will be going in my sale pile. The next one that's going to be going is the worst gaming experience I've had this year. It's not really a game at all, and that is Dune House Secrets. Now, I completed this game, and the rabbit ears are intentional there. It's pretty much a choose your own adventure, an overpriced, overproduced, very minimal choose your own adventure. Not really many redeeming qualities. I played through it. I've got no desire to ever get it to the table again. That is definitely going for sale. So yeah, not really a fan in any way, shape or form of Dune House Secrets. Now the next one is maybe a little bit of a surprise. You see, I love the Alien films. Alien itself, the first movie, is in my top 3 movies of all time. And I've got a number of Alien and Aliens based games. So I bought this one because, it was coming out and people seemed to like it. And I thought, yeah, it's an alien game, so I'm going to like it. And I was utterly underwhelmed by the experience, and that is Alien, The Fate of the Nostromo from Prospero Hall or Ravensburger. It does more or less the same, it has more or less exactly the same gameplay as Horrified, but it just becomes a little bit of a chore to play. It's a bit of a pick up and deliver game while you're evading the alien that's on the ship. It didn't evoke the feeling of Alien for me. In fact, I would say that this is pretty much a big disappointment for me. Now I've got other Aliens games. I've got the Legendary Encounters games. I've got the Aliens Marine Corps game that came out last year. Can't remember what that's called exactly. I've got the Aliens game from 1989 as well, or 1991 as well. So I've got those games, and I thought this would be a great addition to my collection. I love the Alien films. No, just really didn't do it for me. I played it 5 or 6 times now at varying kind of character counts, and it does nothing for me. It becomes a little bit of a real chore. You've got a relatively small board, and your actions are relatively limited. It didn't really evoke a sense of Alien for me, and it could have been any other format that was put in there. So Alien, Fate of the Nostromo is leaving my collection. What we've got next is Adrenaline. So Adrenaline is a first-person shooter board game that was originally released for 2 to 4 players, I believe, and then Czech Games Edition (CGE) released a post-release solo version, which you can download from the website. No additional components needed for it whatsoever. You just download the rules and you can jump straight into it, and it was fun enough. And I think that's a great thing that Czech Games Edition do, is they did it with this, and they did it with What's the other one that they did it with as well? I reviewed the other one. It'll come to me in a second. Sanctum, that's it. And they did it with Sanctum as well. It's a post-release solo mode. Works pretty well, tell you the truth, but hasn't really got space for it in my collection. I haven't played it in the best part of a year now. Probably won't be getting it to the table again. So Adrenaline, great game if you're looking for a 2 to 4 player game with an okay post-release solo mode that's free of charge. So keep your eyes out for Adrenaline if it's your kind of thing. The next one was a Kickstarter release from Martin Wallace, and it's a deck building game set in space, set about the space race, and that is, of course, Rocket Men. And it's an okay deck builder. You kind of build up your deck as you try to send your rockets out into space and kind of beat the game, and it's okay. And I went all in on this. I got the little spaceship mini. I got the mats that came with it as well, and the additional metal coins, which were pretty poor. And it's an okay experience, but it hasn't really scratched an itch for me. I've played it a handful of times. Don't think I'll be returning to it again. I think it probably plays better with more players than solo. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It just didn't wet my whistle in any way, shape or form. So Rocket Men from Martin Wallace is another one leaving my collection. Oh, we're rattling through these. Now, the next one is a relatively big box game, and a lot of people absolutely love this, and it comes from Flying Frog Productions. And there are two games very similar. You've got Fortune and Glory, and you have A Touch of Evil 10th Anniversary Edition. I got Fortune and Glory. I think Fortune and Glory is one of my massive guilty pleasures. So I also got Touch of Evil as well. 10th Anniversary Edition. Plays more or less exactly the same as Fortune and Glory. Completely random dice fest with lots of card decks to draw from. It's an okay experience which is going to be enhanced if you have the expansions for it. The problem is that the expansions are pretty much like rocking horse poo to get hold of. And I can't be bothered to try and hunt them down as well. They're wildly overpriced. If I try to import them from Flying Frog directly, I think for a $40 or $50 expansion, I have to pay $73 postage. I'm really not going to be doing that. And certainly with Fortune and Glory kind of trumping this for me in terms of theme, in terms of gameplay, in terms of immersion, I just haven't got space for two of the same types of game in my collection. So, A Touch of Evil 10th Anniversary Edition is going to be leaving my collection as well. What else? Okay, yeah. So this next one may surprise a few people because it's a wildly popular game that plays exceptionally well solo. But I don't really get to the table that much at all. Again, it's another game that possibly hasn't been on my table in more than 12 months, and that is going to be Mansions of Madness. Now, of course, the same system was then used in Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, and then very similar in Descent, Legends of the Dark as well. And I'd rather play Descent than I would Mansions of Madness. I'm okay with Cthulhu. I like the kind of horror mythos. I think it's an okay game. You need the app for it as well, which doesn't bother me in the slightest. But I haven't felt any kind of compunction to go and buy the expansions for it or get it to the table regularly in any way, shape or form. So, Mansions of Madness, the core game, is going to be leaving my collection. Next up is a game which kind of came out earlier this year to kind of a bit of a fanfare. People seem to like it, and it does have like a couple of solo modes in there. But the game really isn't well designed for solo play at all. In fact, it's almost a play through once and you've done it. There are two ways to play it, but if you play it one way, then you're going to be struggling to play it the other way. And that is Destinies from Lucky Duck. Now, this is following the Lucky Duck formula, which started with Chronicles of Crime, of course, where you have the app which kind of tells a story for you. You're laying tiles down, you're exploring these tiles, you're trying to solve the mysteries within. And there's a number of scenarios here. Wonderful production, and I can see it being a great kind of two-player plus, maybe cooperative, but possibly competitive game as well. But as a solo game, it left me feeling really, really, really flat. And I think this is potentially a misstep by Lucky Duck Games, and the way that their app integration is going. It's focused very heavily on the multiplayer side of it, but an app should give you the ability to almost mimic or recreate that multiplayer side within a game, and they don't really do that. Certainly, obviously, Chronicles of Crime, which is lettering cost in this, and then Destinies itself. The entire the entire gameplay for solo just left me feeling, I say, really flat, unengaged, not really wanting me to get, not really making me want to get it back out to the table again. So it'll go to a good home. Some people will play and love Destinies, but for me, fell flat as a solo experience. So Destinies by Looking At Games also leaving my collection. What next? Another fairly big box game next, and I got this maybe 18 months ago, and I played it quite a bit, but it's definitely a game for more players. You can play it solo by handling multiple hands, but it's a programming game, and therefore you can try and solve 2 puzzles at once if you want. And that game is wonderfully produced, Mechs versus Minions. The production quality on this is out of this world. It's absolutely fantastic. One of the best produced games I've seen in a long, long time. And the gameplay is good. As I mentioned, it's a programming game. You lay your cards out, and you move your characters around the board, and you try and solve the puzzle that's on the puzzles that are on the board in front of you. And you've got this ever-increasing threats. Loads of minis get thrown on the board. It's a lot of fun for more than one person. The solo game is okay. You're managing multiple hands, and with that, the puzzle element kind of becomes a little bit overwhelming as you're trying to work out for multiple hands. Again, great production values. It will go to a home where somebody will really want and enjoy this game. And I think if you've got potentially relatively younger, say 10 plus children who are aged 10 or over, then they're probably going to enjoy playing this with you. So Mechs and Minions, as wonderful as that production value is, as great as this box looks, it takes up a lot of real estate in my storage solution, and it doesn't really get played these days. So Mechs versus Minion, you're on the pile. Okay, so we're kind of halfway through most of the games that I'm going to be getting rid of right now. I think I've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe games left, 7 or 8 games left. But yeah, just this thing about why we buy games, and I think I touched on this on one of my last culling videos as well. And it is a very strange hobby, board gaming. You know, the fact that we feel this need to go out there and get the latest and greatest games, and many of us, and I'm as guilty as the next person, have these huge collections of games which never touch the table, or touch the table so infrequently. But they look great, and we feel this real need to keep these games, because one day I'm going to feel the need to play, I don't know, Mechs versus Minions again. But in reality, if I'm totally honest with myself, that need doesn't happen, because there's a new game coming out I'm potentially more interested in, or some of my older games that I really enjoy that are in my kind of top 10 list. I want to get them back to the table and experience that. And my gaming taste change as well. I've gone away from wanting to try all the games that people say you should try. I'm getting a lot more selective now in what I do. But for some of you out there who are collectors, that trend is going to continue. There's nothing wrong with that trend, but for me, space, tied up equity in the games itself, and the amount of time I get to actually play games these days, which is reducing due to work and family life and other pressures, etc., means that I want to kind of shortlist my collection, or curate my collection if you like, to make it more focused, so that I've got games that hit me whatever mood I want. Problem with having more games is we get overwhelmed by choice, and I think many of us will have been there. Is we want to play a game and we go to our games rooms, our man caves, our woman caves, our whatever caves, to go and find these games that we want to play, or to try and scratch a particular itch. But the choice is just so wide ranging, and it becomes a little bit overwhelming. So I think with that, I'm going to try and do a cull around about every 3 months or so. Try and keep my game collection down to a manageable stack. It's good for space. It's good for the discussions with my wife as well, because space becomes a premium in any household, certainly when you're talking about board games. And it's good for my mental state as well. It means I can focus on the games I want to play, rather than try to play games just for the sake of playing a game. Okay, what's up next? Next up then is Burgle Brothers 2. It's a okay game. The solo experience plays fantastically well. It is a co-op game. And it plays very, very well. You've got the casino, you've got the double layers, you're moving around. I played it a handful of times. I played the original one on an app, played this a handful of times, but I think I'm done with it now. I've got no reason to go back to this now. I think Tim Fowers has done a good job in kind of progressing the Burgle Brothers lineage, if you like. And it brings some new elements to it. but it doesn't hit my table. In fact, I think the last time I got it out, I played half a game and put it away because I was a little bit bored by what I was playing there. There's nothing wrong with this, and I think, again, potentially if you've got a younger family, this could be really good fun. It's a really tactile experience as well, and it certainly is, as it stands up onto the 2 levels. Kind of a unique experience there, but Babel Brothers 2, no room for that in my collection. Now, next up is one, I'll just reach down here and get it. Superseded. I got this as Kickstarter delivery, and I got this through just as they released the app, and I must admit I played this physically a couple of times, but on the app quite regularly, and that's Railroad Ink. So I got the kind of collector's box, if you like, with lots of different versions of Railroad Ink in there, but I don't really play it. If I'm going to play it, I tend to pull the app out because it's a little bit easier to kind of just play a quick game on that on a train or whatever. And I don't play Railroad Ink, so I've got this wonderful big box of lots of Railroad Ink stuff that I don't actually use. And I say, timing-wise, it couldn't have been worse for the physical release of this, because the app came out and the app was relatively successful and it was well implemented. I think they're increasing the kind of functionality on the app all the time as well. So yeah, Railroad Ink, the kind of collector's edition, if you like, the big box, that's moving from my collection. So another one which harkens back a little bit to Mansions of Madness, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, and it's been superseded by Descent, Legends of the Dark. So this is Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth. Played this solo, played it with my wife, played through a few adventures, but again, it hasn't hit the table in a fair amount of time. And again, if I want this type of game, I find Descent, Legends of the Dark far superior to this. And with that being the case, I don't think, is it Legends of the Dark or Journeys in the Dark? Anyway, the latest Descent, I find it a superior game to this. So if I want that kind of itch, as much as I like Lord of the Rings, rereading the books at the moment, it's just not going to hit the table for me. So I think it's time for me to kind of cut my losses on Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, and yeah, put that into the discard pile, into the cool pile. Yes. Okay, what's coming up next? It's a game which I toyed about getting rid of last time, and I thought, right, I'll see if I get it to the table, and it hasn't got back to the table. And that is Hellboy, the board game, the collector's edition. So I've got the big box of Hellboy, the board game. And in my review, when I reviewed this nearly 2 years ago, I said it's okay, and it is. It's okay. It's got this, this scenario system, which is kind of adaptive. You can mix and match scenarios with what comes in the collector's edition. And if you like a kind of a dungeon crawler, then it's got some really nice mechanics in there. I just prefer other dungeon crawlers to it, and that's the thing. I think that Cthulhu Death May Die does what Hellboy tries to do, but potentially does it a lot better and a lot slicker. And because I've got Cthulhu Death May Die, I don't really need Hellboy in my collection. So it's time for me to, again, kind of cut my ties with Hellboy and say thank you very much for the time you gave me. There's people out there that are going to appreciate this game more than I do. Bye-bye, Hellboy. Okay, right, next up is a game which is, I think the Kickstarter for the second edition has just been released. Has just finished, so people will be getting the second edition in the next kind of 6 to 12 months or something like that. And I backed it on Kickstarter, the original one on Kickstarter on a whim, played it 3 times, and I don't like it. It's okay for some people, but it's Dungeons of Infinity. Yeah, there's just something about it. You place the tiles, you move your adventures around the map and whatnot, and try and solve the particular dungeon that you're in. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. I didn't feel any connection with the game at all. Say 3 plays into it, I know it's not for me. I'm not going to suffer myself to get it back to the table as well. I think it's time to say that Dungeons of Infinity has got to go. It's just not something that I probably wouldn't back it these days. I'm a bit more selective on the games that I back on Kickstarter. I think at the time that I backed it, I was backing lots of games on Kickstarter. A little bit more selective now. It plays 1 to 5 plays. It's a 60 to 20 minutes, 60 to 120 minutes play time on there. If you like dungeon crawlers, it may be for you. You can level up your characters as you go through it. Just held almost no interest for me after the first couple of plays. So that's Dungeons of Infinity. Right, second to last game is a game which people loved. Absolutely loved, and one of the reasons I wanted this game is because so many people were kind of saying it's a great game, so I sought it out on eBay. I got a copy of it on eBay. It's a Simon game, lots of minis on it, lots of minis with it as well, and you know, people tell me it's very thematically linked to the IP that it came from. For me, again, just a game which felt a little bit generic, did nothing new, nothing unique, and that is Bloodborne, the board game. Yeah, people absolutely love this. They go gaga for it. They love the expansions. People have played through the entire campaign, and I've had it to the table half a dozen times, and I'm done with it. It's not a bad game. It's just not an exciting game. It doesn't do anything new or different. Maybe it is faithful to the video game and rock hard like the video game. But for me, it's just another kind of generic tile placement crawler kind of thing, a bit like Cthulhu Death May Die, if you like, with spawning bad guys at certain points and missions to complete. But yeah, left me feeling a little bit cold. I wanted to like it more than I did. I don't like it that much, so going out of my collection is going to be Bloodborne, the board game. Next one is a game that I actually really kind of liked. It was a Kickstarter that I backed and forgot I'd backed. It's an area control game, and it does have a solo mode. It's from the guys that have designed the new Witcher game as well, which just obviously completed its Kickstarter run, and people are very excited about that. And as an area control game, I played it with others, and I played it solo. The solo mode works pretty well. There's a few ambiguities in there, but again, I think I'm a little bit done with it now. And I played it maybe, I don't know, half a dozen to 10 times, and that's Titans, designed by Lucas Wozniak, and published by Go On Board. Great area control game. If you like area control games, and you know, you like that element of spreading out and expanding your empire on a map, and you're playing these kind of mythical creatures in real life war situations, if you like, or you control some mythical monsters in real life war situations, then it is good. I've got the playmat for it. I've got the expansions for it, which are different factions, and a 5th player expansion. I played it with other people, and I've enjoyed my time with it. But I'm not getting it back to the table solo. I haven't done for a number of months now, and I think it's a big box take. Again, probably takes up, with this and the expansions, almost a full Kallax square for me. And for a game that I don't really play, then yeah, it's time for it to go. So that's Titans by Lucas Wozniak. Now, the final one. Let me just reach and get this. So if you watched my last culling video, it was mentioned as a maybe, and I decided I was going to play it more times just to see if it worked for me. And I played it with the expansion, one of the expansions put in there, and I think I played it 3 times in the last year, so not too bad at all. And there is no denying that this is a great game, and I understand why it's rated so highly by so many people. And I'll come on to its rating in a second. But every time I play it, I just think, I could be playing something else. It runs cold for me. And I've tried the various characters that you get with it, and it's still, no matter what I do, it just doesn't do it for me. And it is, according to BGG, the solo list in BGG, it's the #1 solo game for board gamers, and that is Spirit Island, and I have the Branch and Claw expansion. I mentioned last time it may go, and it's been in and out of my to-sell pile for a number of times now, but it is time for it to go. I don't enjoy my time with Spirit Island as much as I want to. It should be a game that ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's got the kind of hand management of Saint Mage Knight. It's got this great theme, this anti-colonialism theme. It's got this really wonderful, smooth and slick gameplay. It's got a manual, which I hate, the manual for this, because it's about the size of the box, basically. But other than that, it's got it's a relatively straightforward game to play, and people absolutely love it. If you want to see a fan of this, then go and speak to Luke Hector over at Broken Meeple. He adores this game, and I wish I did. I wish I found the lightning in a bottle that everybody else seems to find with Spirit Island, but it doesn't. It leaves me not bored, because I understand, I appreciate all of the mechanisms that are in there. It just leaves me very, very, very cold. And I have no real desire to want to play it again. So this is a game that I've kept far longer than I should have kept it. because, yeah, I don't particularly enjoy my time with Spirit Island. It's a real shame. A game I want to like. Got the Branching Claw expansion for it. Does everything that I should like from a board game. The mechanisms work wonderfully. There's lots of challenge, lots of puzzle in there. I just can't explain. Cannot put my finger on why Spirit Island doesn't work for me. But I think that it is now time for me to kind of admit defeat with Spirit Island and say, yeah, you're a great game. I'm just never going to play you again. So Spirit Island is the final game of my huge Christmas Cull. Now, there is one other game which I've not brought the box down for, which I picked up at Essen. It was a bit of a darling at Essen. It's still not available in retail in quite a few countries at the moment. And multiplayer, people seem to genuinely like it. I played the solo twice now. And it has, I think it's completely undercooked as a solo experience. So I'm going to keep hold of it a little bit longer because I want to do a review on this game, and that is Boon Lake. But I think in my next culling video, you will absolutely get to see that Boon Lake, well, it probably will have gone by that point. But Boon Lake for me, big release, it's coming, it's going to hit in retail very shortly. But yeah, I think the solo mode is boring, perfunctory, undercooked, and yeah, doesn't do the game any justice. And I hope that people will release kind of fan-made solo variants for Boon Lake, and I'm sure they will do at some point, because there is a better solo game in there than the solo game you get in the box with Boon Lake. But I'll do a review on that in the next month or so. So there we go. That's my big Christmas Cull list. So I'm going to get all these games either on eBay or on some of the trading sites and start clearing up some real estate in my Kallax. Now, I can say to you, oh yeah, I heartily recommend that you go through this. It's quite a cathartic experience, and it is. It's great to think that, you know, I'm going to get rid of these games that have not just stacked up and packed up my Kallax, but have also kind of clouded my mind when it comes to playing a game. And it's something that I'm going to try and do every 3 months or so, is try and reduce the size of my collection, really be a bit hard-nosed on some of the games that I've got that I don't need to keep anymore. For some of you, that will be exactly the right approach. For others, not so much, and I understand that completely. You know, there are collectors out there who want to keep games. There's nothing wrong with that. I know that my tastes have changed. I know that my buying habits have changed. And I know that I'm buying less games these days than I was as well. I'm kind of happy with that trend, and I want that trend to continue. So, thank you very much for joining me on this big Christmas culling video for Not Board Gaming. You're probably shouting at me for some of those games I'm getting rid of there, or you may be agreeing with me on some of the games I'm getting rid of, but obviously that's my choice, and hopefully in the next 12 months I can fill those gaps with games that I want to keep as well. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, check out our other videos, and one final thought: if you can't find anyone else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye bye.